Today we're going to do a recommendation video for one of my favorite mangaka and horror authors, Junji Ito. See my recommendations after the title. Well, hello and welcome to Trash with a capital T, where we give trashy books and movies the love they truly deserve. And some deserve more than others. I'm your host, Bobby. New videos are posted here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So, if you haven't noticed, I have a little bit of a manga obsession recently. I also am still a big horror nut and am reading horror. And I thought, why not do an author recommendation video that marries the two, my two current obsessions? So, of course, if I'm going to do that, today we're going to have to look at good old Junji Ito. All right. So Junji Ito has been at this for a while. He's probably one of the modern day leaders of horror manga. Most well known for Uzumaki, which we're going to talk about first, since that's probably the place I would recommend if you have no experience with Ito. This is where I would recommend you start. It's probably his most accessible, but at the same time not tame works. This is still dark. This is still very twisted and gory at times. It is very creepy. I've read this multiple times, and it is truly what would many consider his masterpiece. It is the longest, his longest continuous work. Most of the work he does is in short stories. We will look at some of those short story collections, but he does have some longer form, but most are done within, they're compiled into one volume. So Uzumaki follows, it has almost the Stephen King vibe of we're watching a small town go insane. And while we do have a central character, we do hop around a bit and get different stories of the different townspeople, and of course what's going on with and how it pertains to that, but also seeing the madness in this town grow as this town has become possessed and kind of enthralled by spirals. And it sounds goofy, I know, but in reality, it turns so creepy. And the artwork is just stunningly gross at times. Ito is never scared to go dark, to go violent, or to go gross. And we will talk about one of his grossest stories in a bit when we get to the short stories, because it is truly disgusting. He doesn't play nice. Let me see if I can show. I don't think I could show you that page. But you get some truly, without giving away spoilers, he does go hard when he wants to go hard. You don't see it as much in Uzumaki. You also don't see some of his recurring themes of obsession, although that does come up with the spirals. But you'll see that more in the next work we're going to talk about. But this is probably the one I would always say start with. Now, if you are familiar with Uzumaki, as a lot of people are, stick with the manga. The animated miniseries is an abomination. The first episode is gorgeous. The rest of the show is just a disaster. There were known production problems. They have talked about it, but it is bad. Now, it does actually cover a good chunk of this. The live action movie of this plays it more horror comedy, plays way goofy because of the nature of the special effects, and it does work, but it also just chops off the last part of this. That might be because it was still in serialization when the movie came out. Or it was just because they didn't think they had the budget to go as big, because this ending of this is pretty epic. But yeah, if you're interested in Ito, start here. This is him at his best. It's him really building a creepy universe, and you get to spend more time with the characters in the story as they continue through all these different little vignettes. And so they build on you. It is quite creepy and quite enjoyable. I love this one. I have reread it multiple times. I actually read this when it was first released. It was released in 3 volumes. It was actually originally serialized in the Pulp Viz magazine, if you remember Pulp, if you're old enough to remember that. But yeah, this is obviously the easiest place to start. And most people who are familiar with Junji Ito have read Uzumaki. I've had to buy this like 4 times because I will lend it to people and then I will never get it back, because people love it so much. Okay, so I gotta put this down because all of these are hardcovers and they're all chunky and they're very heavy. All right. Ugh. So if you get through that, Uzumaki, while it is probably his most respected work, is not probably his most well-known, at least in Japan. In America, Uzumaki is where most people start. But if you talk about Junji Ito, you have to talk about his most famous character, and that would be Tomie. Okay. So Tomie is where we get into much more mature territory. We are talking about obsession. We are talking about lust, murderous lust. We are talking about misogyny. We are talking about darkness and gore and violence and dismemberment. So we are hitting much more mature territory here. The other reason I usually don't tell people to start with this one is, unlike Uzumaki, which was a continuous story, this is a collection of short stories that have spanned years. There's actually another Tomie story in one of the short story collections we're going to be talking about later. It is definitely the more mature title. So the general gist, a Tomie story starts like this. A young woman usually arrives named Tomie. She is very beautiful, very alluring, has a beauty mark by her eye. And when she shows up, she will disrupt the world around her. Namely, she will draw the attention of every man in her vicinity, which usually leads to the women in the vicinity to turn against her. But it's not just the women that will come for Tomie, because Tomie is a nasty mistress, and she has a bad habit of driving men to the brink of murder. Now, here's the thing. Tomie is not human. I don't know what she is. No one knows what she is. Well, I think, based on the stories, I think Junji Ito knows what she is. But he never tells us. Not all the way. We get hints. Because here's the thing. If you kill Tomie and you dismember her, her body parts will grow into more Tomies. She will multiply. There are other ways that people can be turned in to Tomie. Tomie is more like a parasite that has invaded the human world. She's actually kind of like the novel version of Sadako. If you have read the Ring books, they're very similar. But these stories are used to talk about the idea of obsession and the violence of men towards women, because Tomie usually comes to a violent and brutal end. And so do a lot of the people around her. Things never end well for people who end up in Tomie's orbit. This character has had multiple films, TV movies, all of that in Japan. She's never really had the big crossover to America, probably because of the more mature nature of her storytelling and the kind of sexual nature of her storytelling at times. Now, I say that there's nudity, there's no graphic sex. There is, however, graphic violence because she does get dismembered a lot. And that's actually part of her MO. Because of that, she's able to multiply and spread. And when I say she affects men, I'm not just talking about random guys. I'm talking about her own relatives. She has this horrible effect on men that drives them nuts. And some men are able to pull away, but not all. Not most. And even the women get tied up in her web. And what's interesting is a lot of the movies actually lean very sapphic and lean into a very different relationship between Tomie and the women that fall in love with her, where those relationships are sometimes a little less toxic, but Tomie just brings toxicity. I love the character of Tomie. I have read these stories multiple times. They were actually, before Viz did the big collection, they were originally published in a volume by Dark Horse Comics. Those volumes are really, really, really hard to find. I have one of them in my collection. I did not bring it up here because it is not one of my favorite. But I replaced the Tomie volume with this one because this thing is freaking beautiful. It is heavy though, so I'm going to put it down and I'm going to move on to my next book because, yeah, this thing is like almost 1,000 pages thick. Those stories have been going on for a very, very, very long time. Okay. And this is the last of the classic Ito. These were the things that were originally kind of given to American audiences early on before his popularity really took off. Because here's the thing. He has been publishing since probably the 90s, but it hasn't been until the last couple years where he's really latched on with American audiences, which I love because that means I get more of his material. And that means I get to I'll read a lot of the stories that have inspired movies and everything that have gotten released here. So I am grateful for that. But these three here, the three books I'm showing you here, are kind of like baseline, basic Ito. They also show three facets that kind of make up his style. Where Uzumaki has that almost Stephen King madness-inducing, very fantastical storytelling, Tomie is a little more tied to gritty, and it's a little more tied to real-world violence. Even though Tomie herself is a mystical creature almost, the violence inflicted upon her and others around her is very much human-on-human violence. But then Ito decided to throw all of that to the wind and try something completely different and do a monster story. And that's Gyo. This one is probably... This is the one I know some people really hate, some people really love. I'm in the really love camp. This is an over-the-top B-movie, monster movie, gory, gross story. So basically we follow a group of college kids who are on vacation, and while they're on vacation, they start getting attacked by fish that are coming out of the ocean, and they have these weird mechanical legs. But the thing is, the fish aren't necessarily alive. They're just being driven by these mechanical legs. And God forbid you get stuck with one of these things, you will become infected and your body will start to inflate. This is big and gory and over the top and crude and rude, and I love it. It is a monster story through and through. You end up with some like sharks running through the streets. It goes big before... I know that's why some people don't like it, because it is not super serious. There is a moment where a character is propelled around a room by their own gas. So it is goofy. So it does go a little over the top, but it's still really fun. And if you want a great B movie feel, you want something, and it's shorter. It's much, much shorter. And these read really fast. His panel layout, I don't want to give away spoilers, so I got to watch which one I give you. Let's do something early on. No, that's a spoiler. Here, perfect. His panel layout is really smooth. There's not an overabundance of text. He really lets his art do the talking. So these read really quickly, and this is just, I think I've read this one multiple times. I absolutely adore Gyo. If I'm in the mood for a monster movie, if you want Sharknado but with a little more intelligence, this is your go-to. This was actually animated as a 2-part OVA series. It had significant changes to the story. I know a lot of people did not love it. It is not the prettiest one. I watched it, I enjoyed it, but it is really hard to find. It was given an official release in the US by Aniplex, I believe, but the actual digital release was the physical release was super expensive. I don't know if it is digitally out there legally anymore. If it is, check it out. It is very different than this, and it does lean harder into the sleaze. There's a little more nudity. The gore is much more overabundant. It's a little meaner, but yeah. So that actually gives you 3 faces of Junji Ito. And from there, you're going to go into his short story collections and some of his other smaller long-form works. And when I say that, I am going to actually show you the next one. I'm talking about something like Black Paradox, which I really freaking loved. It is weird, and it is kind of in between Tomie and Uzumaki, where the themes in here are much more adult, but there is a fantastical side to it. Don't get me wrong, this does not play it safe, and his artwork is as disturbing as ever, but also as stunningly beautiful. I love this book. It is actually beautiful. This is one of the stories, when I'm talking about like finally being able to read his stuff, this is a story that I have been wanting to read for a long, long time, but it just wasn't available. And then luckily Viz picked it up once he had gained traction in the US, and I got a chance to read it. This is about 4 individuals who meet on a webpage for people who want to end their lives, and they decide they're going to meet up together and die together. That doesn't go as planned, and instead they end up connecting to the other side and open a doorway, and things go bananas after that. Robots are involved, gateways to other realms that look like giant tumors. It's truly, truly bizarre and dark and kind of terrifying and humorous and twisted, and it is so much fun. And Unlike some of the other ones, this is actually a pretty short one. Now, it does deal with the subject of suicide. So yes, this is going to be very touchy for some people. I can't say it's the most sensitive portrayal of the subject, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like glib. But yeah, that's the only warning I would give this one. I absolutely love Black Paradox. I think it is endlessly enjoyable, and kind of, he does inject a lot of humor into his work, and you can really see it in the character designs. Like if you look up here, his character designs, he does kind of reuse some structures. That's not uncommon, but like you have these very exaggerated characters here compared to these really beautiful characters down here. He likes to pull in very expressive faces, where beautiful faces will become very ugly and twisted and hard to look at. Let me see if I can show you some stuff in here without giving away spoilers or anything offensive. This doesn't really give away anything. Here. Something like this, where these characters are very, very over the top expressive wise, but he does it in a subtle way that makes everything very creepy. I highly recommend Black Paradox. Do I think this is a great place to start if you're okay with the subject matter? Yeah, it's not bad, and it is shorter, so it's less of a commitment than those. If you're worried about diving into something too long, something like this or Gyo are a good place to start. They are longer form stories, so this is just one story all the way through. So just keep that in mind. If you want something that is going to give you a bunch of different stuff, then you're going to look at his short story collections. I brought 2. I have a bunch of them, but instead of going through all of them and being here for 45 minutes, we're just going to talk about 2 that have what I think are some of his best stories. So, and this one is also, I believe it's in this one. Let me double check. Also one of his most disgusting stories. So I'm picking this one because of the hanging blimp story. This has actually been parodied by The Simpsons. Sorry, I forgot to silence my computer. Let's ignore that. And let's silence that. I'm going to... There we go. Okay. The collection is Shiver. The story in particular that made me pick this is Hanging Blimp. So that story follows a young girl when an epidemic hits the world, where people are finding giant blimps of their own heads floating through the air, and if the blimp comes down, it will tie a noose around your neck and fly you off into the sky and kill you. And it starts small at first, but slowly it starts to grow. And when people try to fight back, they learn that if they destroy the blimp, they kill themselves in quite horrible ways, might I add. There are some other really strong stories in here. Painter is actually another Tomie story. I think Fashion Model introduces one of his creepier characters. I need to double check that. If you have tryptophobia, the story Shiver in here, where someone starts to get small holes all over their body, will probably destroy yes. Supermodel introduces this character who is this kind of otherworldly creature who people find oddly beautiful in some cases and oddly repulsive in others. And she might not be as innocent as she looks, which she doesn't look all that innocent, so she might be quite dangerous. But this also includes his most disgusting story. And I say that as like, this truly, truly tested my gag reflex. And that would be Greased. A story involving someone consuming and collecting the grease off of someone's face and body as they start to overly produce it. I'm not going to go too far into details. It is truly stomach churning and hilarious and gross, and Troma would probably love to transform it into a movie someday. I would love to see them try. It is, yeah, and I think it was animated. I think it was animated in one of the collections, like the series they did. I'm not entirely sure though. But Shiver is a really good starting point if you are looking for some of his short fiction. This has a wide range of his storytelling. And all of these stories are separate, because sometimes these short story collections will have smaller interconnected stories. You'll see that with Dissolving Classroom. And actually in the next one we're going to talk about. So my final one, this one I actually love. I was looking forward to reading this because there's a movie that was actually released in the US called Love Ghost. And I thought it was a really great, creepy J horror film. But the story that it was based off of had not been released in the US for years. So when it was finally released in Love Sickness, I grabbed it. Now, the stories are very different than the movie, as is usually the case with a lot of Ito's stuff, because his stories are very episodic in nature, and you don't necessarily want that in your movies. I will say the Uzumaki movie does actually have that kind of episodic feel. Love Ghost, not so much. Now, Love Ghost covers several chapters in the beginning of this one. So that covers the first 5 stories. That's the Love Sickness stories, which have to play into like the love curses and love games, like the charms that people will try and perform. And this one involves talking to someone at a crossroads at like a 4-way stop sidewalk thing. It's very creepy during a foggy night. And you will have the person you love revealed to you. But that starts to go very wrong for a lot of people who try to play it. And there's a lot of different takes on this. It's kind of a monkey paw situation for some of these characters. But it's really enjoyable. It's really fun. The stories move very quickly. And as you can see, the art is actually freaking stunning. I love this book. You also get the introduction of I can't pronounce this name, Hikizuri siblings. There's 2 stories in here with them. It is a group of truly horrible siblings, who like to terrorize people, but it usually blows up in their own faces and doesn't go so well for them or the people that they're trying to terrorize. But they play some pretty nasty jokes that usually result in death. But that's definitely leaning more into Ito's dark sense of humor. The other stories in here I thought were pretty good. It's been a while since I've read this one, but they're always playful. They're always fun. They never overstay their welcome. His stories move pretty quickly. This volume alone has, the first 5 are the Love Sickness ones, which, like I said, kind of follow different characters, and they don't feel they're very episodic in nature. Then we have 2 stories with the Hikizuri siblings. And then we have 3 more stories in here. Memories of Real Poop is the last story. I don't remember that story. I do not have Memories of Real Poop. But it does involve real poop. That is quite horrifying. It's a very short story. So again, this one ends with a truly disgusting story. He's not afraid to go juvenile with the humor, which means when you read Ito, you get a wide range of stories. You get a bunch of interplay. Some stories are very big and over the top. Some are very small and intimate. Some are even kind of thoughtful. Some deal with very heavy ideas. I don't have it up here. I believe it's I can't remember the name of it, but he has stories. He has a collection that specifically deals with themes of misogyny. He's not afraid to go there, and I am grateful for it. And I wish I had this one. If you want to try something from him, but you are really scared to try anything with horror, I believe it's called Yan and Moo, the Cat Diaries. I will put the cover up here. I don't have my copy. I gave it to my stepson, I believe. Like, I actually gave it to him. It's very short. It's very cute. It does have his creepy artwork, and it does have some of that humor, but it plays it much more sweet and fun as it tracks his life with his then fiance and their 2 cats and his interactions with said cats. And it is really cute. It is really, really cute. I wish I still had it in my collection, but I do not. So that might be, if you're not into horror, but you still want to try out some Junji Ito, that might be a place to go. He's also done adaptations. I do not have those. He's done adaptations of titles like Frankenstein. He did Not Human. I believe it's No Longer Human. He's done some of those that are very highly regarded. His artwork is all over everything. So, Junji Ito has interested you, but you weren't sure where to start, or you're not really familiar with manga and you're not sure what to go with. I hope my video has helped you out. But I'm going to wrap it up here. I know this is kind of short for as far as my recommendation videos go, but there's no reason to go over if I don't have to. So with that, let's go. If you have Junji Ito title that you would like me to review, let me know in the comments. I do have a bunch of his other short story collections, and I only have a couple more I have to catch up on. I think I just ordered Alley, and I'm missing Moan, and I'm missing Statues, which are his most recent. So I am a little behind, but not that far. So yeah, if any of those sound interesting to you, or if you want me to try and review any of his other stuff, let me know in the comments, and I will try and work them into the schedule. Especially because we are going to be getting into spooky season soon. So might be a nice place to dip in there. And if you're new to manga, check him out. He's a great entry point because it's not a huge commitment. He is someone where you can pick up a short story collection, try him out, and if you don't like it, You got one short story collection. You're not trying to read a 20 volume series, or in the case of like One Piece, 100+ volume series. Okay, now we're going to get to this general housekeeping. New videos every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you like what you saw, give me a like. Makes me feel good and helps the channel. All right. Don't forget to subscribe and love what you love. Enjoy what you're reading and watching, and have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.